Pre-Millennium Signs, video number 9B. These are the signs during the building of the New Jerusalem. So let's look here and just do a quick overview again of what happens in the building up of Zion. There's three main stages: the preparation stage, which we went over in the last video, the building stage, which we'll go over in this video, and the next video, which is the protection and perfecting stage. We're going to focus in on three parts of this building stage. The first is the gathering and the building. The second is the city descending out of heaven, and there's actually quite a few things that happen with this. And the third is the armies of the Assyrian approaching. And the Assyrian, of course, is most people know of as the Antichrist. So this is the leader of the bad guys during the last days. So let's start here. There's way too many scriptures here to read them all, but you have access to this document through the link, and you can read these on your own. They're all links. So let's talk about this first stage. What we did before in the foundation stage is talk about these Josephs who were sent ahead to prepare, these disasters that wiped Missouri clean. We talked about the 12 apostles laying the New Jerusalem temple cornerstone, Prophet Joseph and others appearing and selecting a priesthood body to go ahead and prepare the way, redeem the land, and then the living prophet leading the entire priesthood army to actually do that. Now, what we're going to talk about is once that redeeming army is gone there and set up in the New Jerusalem, the next stage is for the main body of the church to gather there and people to come from all over the world. So let's read about some of these. And first of all, let's start out in Doctrine and Covenants, section 133, verses 9 through 15. And behold, and lo, this shall be their cry, and the voice of the Lord unto all people. Go ye forth unto the land of Zion, that the borders of my people may be enlarged, and that her stakes may be strengthened, and that Zion may go forth unto the regions round about. So this is the cry. We've redeemed the land. Priesthood body is there. Everybody else, go to the land of Zion, which is Jackson County, Missouri, in the beginning. And as he states here, the borders are going to be enlarged. As more people come, there's going to be stakes put out around the New Jerusalem. So it's intended that Zion will go forth throughout the state of Missouri, throughout the United States, throughout North and South America, throughout the world. So it's intended to grow. Yea, let the cry go forth among all people, awake and arise, and go forth to meet the bridegroom. Behold, and lo, the bridegroom cometh. Go you out to meet him. Prepare yourselves for the great day of the Lord. Really important point here. Why should people go to Zion? They need to go there because they want to meet the bridegroom, Jesus Christ. He is going to appear at the New Jerusalem. And also for the great day of the Lord. So eventually the Lord is going to come to all the world. And in between then are a lot of destructions. So go and meet the Lord first at the New Jerusalem. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. And I'll say here, none of us who are looking at these prophecies and trying our best to determine when the dates are know exactly. We're making our best guess based upon the commandment that we've been given to watch. And so know that there are certain prophecies in here that give you an idea of certain days, but we don't know neither the day or the hour. And it's important for us to prepare ourselves and to be ready to be led by the Spirit. Let them, therefore, who are among the Gentiles flee unto Zion, and let them who be of Judah flee unto Jerusalem, unto the mountains of the Lord's house. So this is going to be a long process. It's going to involve the Lord's people, the Gentiles. It's going to involve the Jews. And the idea is get out of Babylon. Don't look back. And so this is the beginning of this gathering of everybody. So let's go back here to Doctrine and Covenants 42, 64 through 67 now. And even now, let him that goeth to the east teach them that be converted to flee to the west. And this in consequence of that which is coming on the earth, and of secret combinations. So why this necessity to flee from the lands you're in? Secret combinations and the destructions that those secret combinations will bring. Behold, thou shalt observe all these things, and great shall be thy reward. For unto you it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom, but unto the world it is not given to know them. So we can know these mysteries. Ye shall observe the laws which ye have received and be faithful, and ye shall hereafter receive church covenants such as shall be sufficient to establish you both here and in the New Jerusalem. So the Lord is planning all of this as a way to get people out of the consequences that are coming on these secret combinations. The New Jerusalem is a center point, but it's not going to be the only place where these Zion cities are going to be constructed. So now we'll go to verses 35 and 36, same section. And for the purpose of purchasing lands and for the public benefit of the church and the building of houses of worship and the building up of the New Jerusalem, which is hereafter to be revealed, that my covenant people may be gathered in one, in that day when I shall come to my temple, and this I do for the salvation of my people. So the whole purpose of building a temple there in the New Jerusalem is going to be so that when Jesus Christ comes, we can meet him there. He said he's going to come suddenly unto his temple. That is the temple in the New Jerusalem. All right, so now 45, 66 through 71. And it shall be called the New Jerusalem, a land of peace, a city of refuge, a place of safety for the saints of the Most High God. I don't know about you, but when I read this, I am excited to go there. I know, obviously, we haven't been given that call to go back yet. Some people may feel called to be those first Josephs, but when that time comes, I hope that we're all prepared so that we will leave whatever it needs to be left behind and go to this place of peace, refuge, and safety. Go to 84, verses 2 through 5. Yea, the word of the Lord concerning his church, established in the last days for the restoration of his people, as he has spoken by the mouth of his prophets, and for the gathering of his saints to stand upon Mount Zion, which shall be the city of New Jerusalem, which city shall be built, beginning at the temple lot, which is appointed by the finger of the Lord in the western boundaries of the state of Missouri, and dedicated by the hand of Joseph Smith Jr. and others with whom the Lord is well pleased. Verily, this is the word of the Lord, that the city New Jerusalem shall be built by the gathering of the saints. So we are going to build it. We're going to have to put in work. Beginning at this place, even the place of the temple, which temple shall be reared in this generation. So D&C 101, 18 through 23. And they that remain and are pure in heart shall return and come to their inheritances, they and their children, with songs of everlasting joy, to build up the waste places of Zion. A couple things to note here. We will be joyful in going there, even though it may be a hard journey, depending on where we're located to get there. It's going to be joyful because we know what's coming there. And we have to build it because those destructions that cleared off the place for Zion are going to leave it a waste place at first. All these things that the prophets might be fulfilled. And behold, there is none other place appointed than that which I have appointed. Neither shall there be any place appointed than that which I have appointed for the work of gathering of my saints, until the day cometh that there is no more found room for them. Then I have other places which I will appoint unto them, and they shall be called stakes for the curtains and strength of Zion. There's a lot of saints that think that this is kind of figurative, that, maybe someday that'll be there, but most of us won't go there, and that, they just don't really feel that it's something that's going to happen in their lifetime or that is realistic. It's not realistic. It's miraculous. It will be miraculous, but it will come at a time when we will want that safety. Let us prepare ourselves for that, because if we're going to do this, we're going to have to gather together and stand in these holy places, whether that's the New Jerusalem or these other stakes of Zion round about it, and in other countries in the world. Because what's going to happen is we're going to prepare ourselves for this revelation which is to come. What's the revelation? It says, the veil of the covering of my temple and my tabernacle, which hideth the earth, shall be taken off, and all flesh shall see me together. So there's a couple of revelations here. One, I think this will first happen in the New Jerusalem when he comes to his temple, and the people there round about will be able to see him. And then also there will be a time when all the earth shall see him together. So there's at least three mass comings of Christ to the world. One is the New Jerusalem, one is the Old Jerusalem to the Jews, and one is to the world in the sky. All right, so let's go down to D&C 8214. For Zion must increase in beauty and in holiness. Her borders must be enlarged. Her stakes must be strengthened. Yea, verily I say unto you, Zion must arise and put on her beautiful garments. So this is going to be a building process, not going to be in a single day. It's probably going to take at least a year or several years for Zion to be built. And even then, I think we have to realize that she will expand beyond New Jerusalem, which will be the capital city, the center stake, and outward throughout all the world. So this is a process. And us internally, we're going to have to increase in beauty and holiness, and we're going to have to be strengthened and arise and put on our beautiful garments. And what are those beautiful garments? Well, there's a number of different meanings for that. I'll leave that up to you, but this is something that's really important. When we go there, we need to be temple-worthy people at the very least. All right, let's go here to some quotes from Latter-day Prophets. So Joseph Fielding Smith has a really good quote about this stage of gathering. He says, "When God leads the people back to Jackson County, how will he do it? Let me picture to you how some of us may be gathered and led to Jackson County. I think I see 200,000 or 300,000 people wending their way across the Great Plain, enduring the nameless hardships of the journey, herding and guarding their cattle by day and by night. This is one way to look at it. It is certainly a practical view. Some might ask, what will become of the railroads? Or we might ask, what will become of the airplanes and the interstates? I fear that the sifting process would be insufficient were we to travel by railroads or planes or interstates." So it sounds like this is something that's slow, it's on foot, it's difficult, and it will be part of our sanctification and sifting process. So some people won't want to make the journey there, and so they will stay behind. They may come later, but they may not be there at the beginning. So there's going to be a sifting process in this gathering, and it's probably going to be a sanctifying sifting process. So let's go to the next one here, which is Elder McConkie. "There are many stakes in Zion in which the saints will gather. However, the Lord singled out Independence, Missouri as the center place of the millennial kingdom. Let Israel gather to the stakes of Zion in all nations. Let every land be Zion to those appointed who dwell there. Let the fullness of the gospel be for all saints in all nations. Let no blessing be denied them. Let temples arise wherein the fullness of the ordinances of the Lord's house may be administered. But still there is a center place, a place where the chief temple shall stand, a place to which the Lord shall come, a place whence the law shall go forth to govern all the earth in that day when the second David reigns personally upon the earth. And that center place is what men now call Independence in Jackson County, Missouri, but which in that day to come will be the Zion of our God and the city of holiness of his people. The site is selected, the place is known, the decree has gone forth, and the promised destiny is assured. Among all houses of the Lord, the temple to be built at the center place of Zion will stand supreme. It is destined to consist of a complex of 24 buildings, all dedicated as houses of the Lord. The Lord revealed that the gathering to and building of the city of New Jerusalem will have its beginning at the place of the temple. So after you have this building of the New Jerusalem and the people gathering to it, these highways of people who are protected and coming to the land, this process of building is going to change the land because the Lord is going to bless it. So this is this part of the land being healed. Let's read about this in Psalms 107. "He turneth the wilderness into a standing water, and dry ground into water springs. And there he maketh the hungry to dwell, that they may prepare a city for habitation, and sow the fields and plant vineyards which may yield fruits of increase. He blesseth them also, so that they are multiplied greatly, and suffereth not their cattle to decrease." So this is something that can be applied to the New Jerusalem. I especially love this part where it talks about these people who come there hungry and they're preparing a city for habitation. That sounds exactly like the New Jerusalem. And it's going to require these water springs to come forth because the wilderness that has been created by these destructions, earthquakes, floods, hail, is going to require a healing so that the people can sow their fields, plant vineyards, and so that their cattle don't decrease. So this is really a window into this time period when the saints are first coming to the area of Missouri after these destructions, and they're settling there. Another example of that, this is great, Isaiah 51:11. Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come with singing unto Zion. Everlasting joy shall be upon their head, and they shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and mourning shall flee away. So even though that there will be difficulties, we'll be having to work, the land will be desolate at first, and the Lord will have to heal it. The Lord is going to redeem the people as well as the land, and both together are going to be productive again. Isaiah 35 is all about this particular time period. So in the day of restoration, the desert will blossom, the Lord will come, Israel will be gathered, and Zion will be built up. This is Isaiah chapter 5. The entire chapter is about that. I'm not going to read all of it because it's a whole lot. Let's just go to verse 7. And the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. In the habitation of dragons, where each lay, shall be grass with reeds and rushes. And an highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those, the wayfaring men, though fools shall not err therein. No lion shall be there, nor any ravenous beast shall go thereon. It shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return, and come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. So imagine in your mind this huge body of saints moving to the New Jerusalem, to where they're going to build it, and beginning this building process, and then going back and creating these highways that more people can gather there and be safe. Of course, this also can have a meaning towards the lost 10 tribes. We also know that they are going to be gathered to the New Jerusalem, and that they're going to come safely and with joy to the New Jerusalem. They're not going to have to worry about ravenous beasts. They're not going to have to worry about food and water. It may be a difficult journey, but they're going to be protected and provided the things that they need along the way. That's really what I want you to get out of this, is there's this healing of the land as the Lord is bringing his people here to Zion. And really what it is the land returning to its millennial state, to its terrestrial state, to the way it was in the Garden of Eden. And how is that change going to happen to the world? We know, of course, after the second coming of Christ to the world, during the millennium, it will be like the Garden of Eden across the world. But that's not going to happen all at once. It's going to start at the New Jerusalem. There, the land is going to be healed and begin to be like the Garden of Eden again, and that will spread outward with the righteousness of the saints and with God's power until eventually it does cover the entire world after the second coming of Christ to the world. But you can envision in your mind this process of the saints building, gathering, creating these highways and people coming along them, the land being healed around there. What an amazing time this will be to live in. What incredible testimonies to the faith of those who made it there to see these miracles happening. This is why they're going to have this righteousness that's going to give them power to do the miracles that God needs them to do. So this is this process here of building up, gathering and building up the New Jerusalem. And I think this will be a fairly long process. I would guess that this is going to be for at least a year. The next step, it's not really clear when these things happen. The next 3, which I say is the city descending out of heaven. But these are going to sit somewhere in between the beginning of this building of the New Jerusalem and these events that are going to come next, which is that the armies of the Assyrian are going to approach Zion. They're going to humble America along the way as they invade. But before that happens, in between here in the stage 5, you have first Adam-on-Diamond, where Adam sits. You have second, people begin fleeing to Zion instead of simply just gathering peacefully. And then you have this New Jerusalem coming down from above. Now, when I said first, second, third, I don't necessarily mean that the third one is going to happen before the second one. There's no indication of timing in these 3 so where I could tell one comes before the others. But they all will happen in between the building of the New Jerusalem and the Assyrian coming. This is from April 1978, the Storehouse Resource System. If any of you had a vision of Zion, it was shown to you in its beauty and glory after Satan was bound. You did not see a vision of driving cattle across the plains and where you would be mired in this or that mud hole. You did not see the stampedes among the cattle and those of a worse character among the people. But you saw the beauty and glory of Zion, that you might be encouraged and prepared to meet the afflictions, sorrows, and disappointments of this mortal life, and overcome them, and be made ready to enjoy the glory of the Lord as it was revealed to you. President Romney then concludes, we have visions of the welfare program. We have great visions of the redemption of Zion and the building of the New Jerusalem, the inauguration of the United Order, the coming of the millennium. But before these visions materialize, we must travel some rough roads. There it is. These are the rough roads, and this is a description of this travel. The mud holes and the stampedes among the cattle. All of these things give us an idea of this journey is going to be difficult, but the Lord is going to bless us along the way. Here you have this quote from Joseph Smith talking about this promise to remove the curse off of the land of Zion. But it's going to come in time. So we're going to have to put in some work. We're going to have some rough roads. There's going to be the desolate state before there's the millennial state. And in the middle, we're going to be working through that. So really very vivid pictures of what's going to happen here when you have the land healed and this process from beginning to build the New Jerusalem after these destructions to the land being healed and being millennial. So the next thing, Adam-on-Diamond, interestingly enough, is one of the things that's most talked about in the church, I think, especially among those who are looking towards the last days. Let's go to the definition that the church actually has for it. In the last days, Adam, as a resurrected being, will come again to the place called Adam-on-Diamond, located in northern Missouri, USA. There he will again gather with others, including many other resurrected beings. Prophets who have held priesthood keys will deliver their keys up to Adam, who was the first to hold such keys, and is the father of the human family on earth. He will then deliver the keys to Jesus Christ. This will be an important event to help prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ to all the world. There's a quick definition of Adam-on-Diamond. Now, there isn't a time that is given for when Adam-on-Diamond will happen. Many people have guessed when it might be, and you have to guess because there isn't a date. It is not going to be something that the world at large knows about. Instead, it's going to be something that is a planning meeting where the Lord gathers together all of his choice spirits, all of these prophets across all the ages, and they all delivered up their stewardships to Jesus Christ. So why are they going to do this? To plan for the last days, and also to give all of their keys back to Adam, who then gives them to Christ, because Christ is soon going to come on the earth and he is going to rule personally. So this has to happen before the coming of Jesus Christ. We do know that much about the date. And my guess is this is going to happen about a year before Jesus Christ appears in the temple of the New Jerusalem. And there's another video where I go into my reasoning behind that. But whenever this actually happens, we do know it will happen, and it's going to be prior to Christ coming again. So let's read some other scriptures about this. D&C 116:1. Spring Hill is named by the Lord Adam-on-Diamond, because, said he, it is the place where Adam shall come to visit his people, or the Ancient of Days shall sit. So this is really important here, this word sit, as spoken of by Daniel the prophet. So why is he going to sit? So he's going to sit and receive the priesthood authority and reports from all of these prophets through all the dispensations. But he is not going to be acting at this point. He's going to be sitting in council and working on the plans the Lord has prior to his return. And so this is a grand planning meeting. And my guess is probably most of us are not going to be there, and we may not even know about it. But this is going to be an amazing event that I'm sure we'll hear about afterwards. And for a few, they may actually be there. Certainly, I think our prophet will be there, and any prophet who has held the keys will be there at this meeting. My guess is this is going to happen on the 200th anniversary of the church founding. So this is going to be in 1830 to 2030. So Adam is sitting because there's still a lot of bad going on in the world. This is during the half hour of silence, which heaven is seemingly silent at all these injustices, the Assyrian triumphing and being undefeated. And Adam is also going to sit here. So this is not his point to stand, but that will come later. So the other event that's going to happen in here is there's going to be a shift where people are going to begin fleeing to Zion. I think Previously, you get this idea that they are coming prepared. They're not rushing. They are joyful as they're coming to Zion and beginning to build it. But at some point, the call is going to come out to begin fleeing to Zion because the Assyrian is going to be coming. And so the Lord is going to call to these people to begin fleeing. So let's read a quote from Joseph Smith about this. When wars come, we shall have to flee to Zion. The cry is to make haste. The last revelation says, Ye shall not have time to have gone over the earth until these things come. It will come as did the cholera, war, and fires burning, earthquakes one pestilence after another, until the Ancient of Days come. Then judgment will be given to the saints. So here you see the Ancient of Days, that's Adam, mentioned in the same time period as fleeing to Zion. That's why I put these two together. So D&C 45:68, and it shall come to pass among the wicked that every man that will not take up his sword against his neighbor must needs flee unto Zion for safety. So there's going to be a big reason why this fleeing is going to happen, is there's going to be wars, like Joseph Smith said, that people are going to want to escape from, and that's where this fleeing is going to happen. D&C 133:12. Let them, therefore, who are among the Gentiles flee unto Zion. Once again, this idea, if you're among the Gentiles could be the people here in America. We are often known as the Gentiles. It could mean simply anyone who is not a member of his church at that time will flee, but many of them are going to come to Zion at this time, many of them fleeing ahead of the Assyrian coming. Let's read now in Zechariah. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. So here in the beginning, you're going to have the people of Zion mixed in with the daughter of Babylon. Daughter of Babylon is probably the United States and certainly the Gentile world at large. And Zion is going to be the God's people mixed throughout the United States and throughout the world. And God at some point is going to send out to all of his people, gather into these safe places, gather into the barn. Zion is being built. These Zion cities are established. The New Jerusalem is being built. Quickly come in so that you can be protected. And a good possibility of why this is going to happen at this time is that I think if you look at the Nephite history, their government collapses in 31st year. And so in 2030 is going to be this collapse, probably in the United States, just the way it was in Book of Mormon times prior to the coming of Christ. So now this really good sign here, which is the New Jerusalem coming down from above. I think about these things in this order because I see the planning happening first between Adam and all these prophets. I see the call going out to flee. And then to strengthen the people, I see this wonderful sign. And I think this lines up with the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, which is going to be something that people are going to be able to visibly see, even who don't have faith. Joseph Smith said it will seem like a comet or a planet. That's a guess of mine. I'm taking those two things, which I think are happening about the same time, and I think they may be connected. So what is this New Jerusalem coming down from above? Didn't we build it ourselves? Well, we'll be building it, but God is going to send help. Let's read about this. Revelations 21:2. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So the best we're going to be able to do to prepare ahead of Jesus Christ coming is not going to be good enough. As much as we want to build this beautiful city and have this temple ready for the coming of Jesus Christ, it's going to be necessary for us to have Christ's help. And this is the way it always seems to work. God commands us to do something, and we put forth our feeble efforts. We try as best as we can, but it's not enough. We need the grace of Christ. And to me, this New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven is Christ's grace. He's saying, hey, I see what you've done. You're trying so hard to build, but I've got to come soon to save you and to visit you. I'm going to send down help. And that's this New Jerusalem coming down from heaven. So what is in there? We don't know exactly, but I would imagine this would be extra parts of the temple. This would be other buildings that would be necessary. And it, as a sign coming down from heaven, would be seen by those at the New Jerusalem. And it would be a credible strengthening to their faith. Let's read about this in the Doctrine and Covenants now. 84, verse 100. This is the song that the redeemed are going to sing afterwards, and it mentions this. The Lord hath redeemed his people, and Satan is bound, and time is no longer. The Lord hath gathered all things in one. The Lord hath brought down Zion from above. The Lord hath brought up Zion from beneath. So the bringing up Zion from beneath, I believe, is us building. The Lord bringing it down from above is this coming down of the holy city from the heavens in the sight of all people. And of course, those who are far, far away in other parts of the earth, if this does correlate with the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, we'll see it and it will look like a planet or a comet. They won't be able to tell more than that. But those who will be at the New Jerusalem will see it descending right to them. And so what an amazing, amazing miracle that is going to be. Once again, tying into what President Nelson's talking about, these amazing miracles are going to happen between now and the second coming of Christ. So John Taylor talks about this, and Elder Christofferson in a general conference talk mentioned this as well. So let's go to the John Taylor quote. When the time comes that these calamities we shall read of shall overtake the earth, those that are prepared will have the power of translation, as they in the former times, and the city will be translated, and Zion that is on earth will rise, and the Zion above will descend, as we are told. And we will meet and fall on each other's necks and embrace and kiss each other, and thus the purposes of God, to a certain extent, will then be fulfilled. So to me, this is John Taylor talking about this event of Zion coming from above and it meeting the Zion that we're building beneath in the New Jerusalem. What an amazing time this is going to be. Elder Christofferson just recently mentioned this in his General Conference talk in 2019, preparing for the Lord's return. He said, first and crucial for the Lord's return is the presence on the earth of a people prepared to receive him at his coming. He has stated that those who remain upon this earth in that day, from the least to the greatest, shall be filled with the knowledge of the Lord, and shall see eye to eye, and shall lift up their voice, and with the voice together sing this new song, saying, the Lord hath brought again Zion. The Lord hath gathered all things in one. The Lord hath brought down Zion from above, and the Lord hath brought up Zion from beneath. In ancient times, God took the righteous city of Zion to himself. By contrast, in the last days, a new Zion will receive the Lord at his return. Zion is the pure in heart, a people of one heart and one mind, dwelling in righteousness, with no poor among them. The prophet Joseph Smith stated, we ought to have the building up of Zion as our greatest object. We build up Zion in our homes, wards, branches, and stakes, through unity, godliness, and charity. So very recently, Elder Christofferson talking about this. And really, all of these things we're talking about are to prepare us to be ready to receive Jesus Christ. When he comes to his temple, he wants you there. He wants me there. And to do that, he has to have us go through this sifting and refining and suffering period, and this hard work in building and doing our best, and even this fleeing to get there. And then he will also bless us with miracles of healing the land and the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven to reward our faith and to prepare us till we build to this point where we're able to be in his presence. So the last of these three steps in the building period is the armies of the Assyrian approaching. Now, I see these happening in fairly close time period to each other, perhaps within several months. So if you're not familiar with the Assyrian is what Isaiah calls what we would call the Antichrist. John, the Revelator, calls him the mouth or the horn, and Daniel calls him the horn. This is this end times leader of the great beast nation that takes over all the earth, the one world government, you could say. So this Assyrian, I believe, during the same time that the New Jerusalem is being built up, he is being victorious, subduing the various nations. And he comes to America at this time in reaction to the buildup of the New Jerusalem. So as he hears about or sees the New Jerusalem growing in power, he wants to be the only power. And so he goes to oppose it. And so we read about this in a whole bunch of different places from the New Testament, Old Testament, and the Book of Mormon. Let's start in the Book of Mormon with Nephi's words about this time. Nephi says, the Lord shall bring upon thee and thy people, and upon thy father's house, days that have not come from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria. So he's talking to the descendants of Ephraim, to us, the church here in America and across the world. And he's bringing to mind the story of the northern kingdom of Israel being subjected and destroyed by the king of Assyria. And that's why Isaiah calls this leader the Assyrian. He is the Assyrian king in type or shadow. This person will be given a task by God. Now, this may be hard for us to understand. Why would God give a task to someone wicked like the Assyrian? God uses the wicked do his work of punishing and humbling others who are wicked. He's done it again and again throughout the scriptures. Think of the Lamanites. He used the Lamanites as a scourge, he said, against the Nephites when they forgot him. He used the nations surrounding it to be a scourge and a punishment to them, to remind them. And America is no different. We are going to have this scourge come upon us. It says here, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall hiss. So the Lord's doing the calling here. For the fly that is in the uttermost part of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. So this is this huge army that he's using symbolically to be described as a fly and a bee. And they shall come and shall rest all of them in the desolate valleys and in the holes of the rocks and upon all thorns and upon all bushes. In the same day the Lord shall shave with a razor that is hired. So this razor that is hired is the king of Assyria and his army. By them beyond the river, by the king of Assyria, the head and hair of the feet. The head and the hair of the feet of who? Of the descendants of Ephraim, of America, and it shall also consume the beard. So this is going to be a terrible invasion. And this, just as it happened on Israel, it's going to happen on America. But the difference is that when northern Israel was destroyed by Assyria and carried off into captivity, there weren't any righteous there. Here in America, God is going to gather his righteous together into the New Jerusalem. And in fact, when he calls them to build and calls them to flee into the New Jerusalem, it's because he knows the Assyrian is going to be sent to do this job. He is going to send him. And also, he cannot send him until he is given the righteous a chance to gather together. And because they're gathered out or persecuted and cast out of their lands into the New Jerusalem, now the wicked are mostly alone. And so the Lord can bring this wicked army upon the wicked in America, and their punishment can be just. All right. Another one who talks about this, Joel chapter 1, verse 6. For a nation has come up upon my land. So this used to be Israel, but now it's here in America, strong and without number, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion. You can see this idea of teeth of a lion very much like the description that John the Revelator gives to the beast, to this giant nation at the end times that will be led by the Assyrian. And he hath the cheek teeth of a great lion. So a description of his destructive ability. To me, the UN is the genesis of this beast nation that is going to be led by the Assyrian. The idea that all nations are going to be pulled into one world of government. I think most people have seen that happening already. In Joel 2, 1 through 11, we can read more about this army coming. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion. So this is the perspective from those who are in the New Jerusalem. They will be warned. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, the temple. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. For the day of the Lord cometh, it is nigh at hand, day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people, this right here, and strong, great and strong, I believe is describing the army of the Assyrian. Not great like good, but great like humongous, like terrible. And there hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. So this is going to be the Assyrian at his high point, at his strongest. He is going to bring his army. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, yea, and nothing shall escape them. So if you've seen some of the stories about these unnatural fires happening in various places around the world and burning, you may get an idea of what it may be happening ahead of the army, so that you don't get attacked by other armies or guerrillas. You'd want to destroy the land literally in front of you. Hit it with whatever weapons you're using to cause those fires and destruction. The appearance of them, this army, is as the appearance of horses and as horsemen. so shall they run. This makes me think of the trumpet, where you have these beasts described as horsemen that are going to destroy a third of the men on the earth. Very much the same language here, and this is in the book of Joel in the Old Testament. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people, meaning the people of America who are wicked, who are left, who haven't gathered to Zion, shall be much pained. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run as mighty men, meaning this army again. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one in his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. They shall run to and fro in the city, and they shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them. The heaven shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? Now, some others have come up with other interpretations for who this great army is. I think Michael B. Rush has his mindset that this is the 10 tribes that will be coming, that will be this great army. I believe this is more likely to be this army of the Assyrian that will be here. But once again, this is open to interpretation. I want you to get into the scriptures, read them for yourselves, understand them. You can understand that this great army is coming here to America, whether you know which side they're on. You know that God is directing them against the wicked. That is absolutely certain from this. So let's go on to Revelations 9. We'll read this from another perspective, from John the Revelator. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions. And out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. This definitely sounds like a modern army. By these three was a third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, with them do they hurt. I believe this is the same vision being seen by John the Revelator as Joel saw. This is this great army. But remember that God called this army, so we don't have to fear it. It is going to be something that the wicked will have to fear who have not gathered to these Zion cities. And what will you do in the day of visitation and in the desolation which shall come from far? And to whom will ye flee for help? And where will you leave your glory? Without me, without God, they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. O Assyrian, there it is, that's him, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is their indignation. So the Assyrian is going to lead this angry army that's going to come bring justice upon America for all of her wickedness. And there are many things, if you have followed what America as a government, the American government has done over the decades, that cry out for justice. America's government, unfortunately, has done many horrible things to the people of other nations, and that is going to come back on them. God is going to use this Assyrian as the rod of his anger. I will send him, meaning the Assyrian, against a hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge to take the spoil, and to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so, but in his heart it is to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. So God is sending them against a hypocritical nation. Can you think of a better hypocritical nation to send them against? I, as an American, I'm at the state of America now. It makes me so sad to see how much hypocrisy there is. It doesn't mean all the people are bad. Remember, America, unlike Israel of old, is going to gather everyone who will hear the call into the New Jerusalem and into these Zion cities, and they are going to be protected. So it is not all bad news, but it is going to be terrible for those in America who do not heed the call. So this Assyrian, he doesn't know he's a tool in God's hands. He is proud and arrogant. He thinks he is just going to destroy anyone who gets in his way, and he's going to cut off these powerful nations. So this is told over and over again. Nephi has some great ones where he quotes Isaiah likening the Assyrian to this axe and how the axe thinks it's doing all the work when really it's the Lord wielding the axe. So let's read about this now from Joseph Smith. The building up of Zion is a cause that has interested the people of God in every age. It is a theme upon which prophets, priests, and kings have dwelt with peculiar delight. They have looked forward with joyful anticipation to the day in which we live, and fired with heavenly and joyful anticipations, they have sung and written and prophesied of this our day. But they died without the sight. We are the favored people that God has made choice of to bring about the latter-day glory. It is left for us to see, participate in, and help roll forward the latter-day glory. The dispensation of the fullness of times when God will gather together all things that are in heaven and all things that are upon the earth, even in one. Elder Bednar had a talk not long ago where he talked about gathering all things in one in Christ. This is going to happen temporally as we're gathered into the barn of Zion cities and the New Jerusalem, and it's going to happen spiritually as we're gathered together and sanctified and we become one in heart and we really care about each other. This gathering together of all of those who will hear him, as President Nelson says, into one is happening. But this is what Joseph Smith says is going to happen in opposition to that. He says, the saints of God will be gathered in one from every nation and kindred and people and tongue, when the Jews shall be gathered together into one. The wicked will also be gathered together to be destroyed, as spoken of by the prophets. So this gathering is going to happen in opposition to the gathering that's going on in the New Jerusalem and the Zion cities. The Assyrian is going to be gathering all of the wicked into one and either destroying them himself or trying to destroy the righteous. So that is a polar opposite that's going to be happening. The Assyrian is going to be gathering his people to threaten Zion, and God previously has first gathered his wheat into the barns. Remember, the wheat is gathered into the barns first, then the tares are gathered into bundles and burned. So let's read about this, the Assyrian actually threatening Zion. So I'm imagining that Zion will be centered in the center parts of the United States. Certainly Missouri is right in the middle. And most likely the Assyrian is either going to come from the east or the west or both. And so it's going to take him some time of crushing the west and east coasts and moving in towards the center. And his purpose, of course, is to threaten and destroy Zion. But as he gets close there, we're going to read what happens. This is Joel 2:15 through 17. Blow the trumpet in Zion, steadfast, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, and those that suck the breasts, let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber, and the bride out of her closet. So in other words, gather everybody together who's in these Zion cities or in the New Jerusalem and have a fast, have a solemn assembly. I would imagine that the prophet will be there at the New Jerusalem, and he will issue this call for a fast because everyone will know that the Assyrian and his armies are closing in on the New Jerusalem and Zion. And he is going to call a fast and a solemn assembly. And can you imagine now this sanctified, unified people that are gathered together, fasting and having a solemn assembly? And you know the Lord is going to hear that and answer that prayer that is going to go forth from everyone from old to young. So now we're going to read in 2 Nephi 20:23 through 24. For the Lord God of hosts shall make a consumption, even determined in all the land. That consumption is the armies of the Assyrian coming forth. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God of hosts, O my people that dwelleth in Zion, be not afraid of the Assyrian. He shall smite thee with a rod, and he shall lift up his staff against thee after the manner of Egypt. So God is going to respond to that fast and solemn assembly by saying, be not afraid, be not afraid. And as is usually the case, the deliverance isn't always instantaneous. So I would imagine that there's going to be some time period in between this fast and solemn assembly and when the Lord answers that prayer. But the Lord will answer that prayer. And that is going to be in a very miraculous way. And we're going to cover that in the next video, 9C. And in that one, we're going to talk about Adam standing up, God saving Zion by his power, Christ appearing at the New Jerusalem temple, and all of the amazing things that happen after Zion is secure and the Assyrian no longer will ever dare to threaten it again. I hope that as you have listened to these videos, that you have a greater vision in your mind of how the New Jerusalem is going to be built, what some of these signs are going to be. We may not know the exact time and dates, but we do know the signs, and we can be watching for them as everyday disciples of Christ. We can let these scriptures speak to us. We can let the Holy Ghost inspire us and give us greater faith so that we can prepare ourselves, so we can prepare our neighbors, so that we can become of one heart and one mind, people ready for that kind of miraculous deliverance that Jesus Christ will provide for us.